guys, it's Horsey Steph, and today I'm back with another Horse Trainer Reacts to Horse Fails video. If you guys could go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe for future videos, that would help me out so much. I'm so appreciative of all of you guys that have subscribed to my channel. Also, feel free to leave a comment, let me know what you're thinking, whether you liked this video, or just how your day is going. Talk to me, I'm here. I would love to see what you guys have to say, whatever it is. If you miss any of my horse fail videos, they are linked in the description box below. There is a horse fails reaction playlist. Go ahead and check that out, and let's go ahead and see what happens in this segment. All right, that was a cute little free jump. Oh my! I was wondering what was gonna happen because the horse jumped so cutely over that, and it just jumped right out of the arena. Definitely a problem you run into with jumpers that you have to pay attention to. You teach them to jump, they can jump out of things you don't really want them to jump out of. And obviously it's not just jumpers. My gelding London, long before I ever jumped him under saddle, learned how to jump out of my pasture fence at home, and that really sucked. He'd get out all the time. Luckily there was really nowhere to go, and he didn't want to go by himself, so he never wandered far. But yeah, horses that jump, they can jump out of things, and this is not a huge fence for a horse that just jumped something of similar size. You know, it's just a line right out the gate, and it could go home to its buddies. Okay, I don't even know what to say about that. The handler that was holding that horse as it was windy and the horse started to blow up really did the rider an injustice. If you can't even hang on to a horse as the horse starts to blow up, like, what are you doing? The horse didn't like sit in bolts, he just started to pull away. As a handler, she should have burrowed down and hung onto that horse and gotten him to spin around, so the rider at least had a chance of getting off safely or something. Because the handler just let the rope slide through her fingers as the horse turned away, now you have a rope kind of interfering with the rider as the rider tries to ride whatever's about to happen, and nobody has control of the horse, so the horse is probably going to escalate, take off, etc. I do wish they'd shown us how that ended, but I'm sure it ended badly because there was a reason that handler was there, and for that handler to just totally fail at their job, it put the rider in pretty severe danger. And if you're expecting a handler to be there to help you with a horse, it can be really a scary thing to all of a sudden the horse blows up and your handler just disappears and leaves you to fend for yourself. I would assume they were starting that horse or something, because I don't know why else you would have a handler, but just an incompetent handler. I'm very, very picky about who I have handle my horses when I'm on them. Even doing something simple like a lunge lesson, I want to know whether I have somebody qualified. Even if my horses are really solid and broken, I trust them, I still want to make sure I have somebody qualified in case something happens. You're infinitely more at risk of disaster striking with a lunger that could get you in more trouble instead of help you out of trouble, or at least allow you to work through the problem on your own. All right, so this is another example of somebody whose horse got going too fast, so they grabbed the rein, horse bucked, basically bucked them off to the side. They couldn't recover their balance. Gives it a little release because the buck unseated the rider, the horse takes off further. Would have been better to just let the horse go in the first place, spiral it down into a circle and let it relax and calm down. Could have completely prevented that buck and probably would have stayed on. The buck was absolutely a cause of pulling on the horse's mouth when it was panicking and it needed somewhere to go and it needed to expend this energy. Again, always circle, don't just grab your horse's mouth. It never helps. Never, ever, ever. This isn't another example of somebody grabbing the horse's mouth. It came over the fence, she didn't release it all, got a little upset about that and bucked, and instead of then releasing and going forward, she grabbed harder until this horse is just stopping and going up and bucking and everything it's gonna do. Again, if she had just gone forward, obviously don't chuck the rein in case the horse goes to put its head down. Have a little safety measure there where the horse can't get its head down, but give it a little room in your elbow and go forward. I'm sure that would have fixed this particular issue and most of the issues we've seen so far. Another example, go forward. You can see how the horse has a moment where he thinks about going forward out of that buck, and then she grabs his face, because the forward moment is when she's tossed forward in the buck, and then she sits back and grabs, and he's right back to bucking. When you really start to analyze all of these horse fails and horses spooking and bucking, you really start to be clear on why horses misbehave. And so much of it is that they have no escape from whatever worried them. You just have to consistently give horses an escape, give them a door to go through, and 9 times out of 10, they're not gonna do all this dramatic stuff. If they do a little bit, it's gonna be like 1 second of it right in the beginning. You know, my horse London reared a few weeks ago. We were riding in the arena and something fell from the ceiling, and he was trotting along and saw it and was like, oh my God, and did a rear end spin. But that's it. He did a rear end spin. I started to circle and he was already back to what we were doing before, a nice little trot. And I brought him back to a walk, helped him relax. It wasn't dramatic, because I allowed him to go forward out of it. I didn't think, oh my God, he's going up, let me grab his face and prevent him from doing anything. I found a path for him to take that we could safely maneuver through until he released his energy. He definitely could have exploded farther from there. I was actually expecting after that rear for him to sit and bolt, and that's why I was planning that path. Probably didn't even need to plan a path because he just reared and came right back. But it's because we've spent all of the time I'm riding him teaching him there's always an outlet, always somewhere to go. So he knows when he gets worried, go forward. He always thinks forward. And anytime he does something that's up, you know, a buck, a rear, a spin, it's in the very moment to move away from whatever scared him, and then he's back to going forward. So don't get this buck, buck, buck. I would surely be off of him if he did that. He has a very impressive buck. But I think I've only had him buck like twice, and always in response to my dressage whip when it surprises him, like a little kick out and then he goes forward. Not because he's naughty, it was mostly when I first started riding him with the whip. He didn't really understand it, so he thought maybe I'll just get that off my hind. But again, you're not gonna get that explosive buck we're seeing in these videos with that kind of training, because I'm allowing the forward. So he wants to get rid of it, and then he goes forward, and he's consistently learning that as long as he goes forward, he has an opening and he has a release from whatever bothered him. So this is another one where the horse wanted to kind of turn out, and instead of bending the horse back in and pushing forward, she just cranked him tighter in and he bucked. Again, lack of forward creates buckers. This one I'm guessing is gonna buck on landing because she didn't release over that cross rail at all, so he landed into her hand and caught himself, and that tends to make horses very angry, like so. She is doing a better job of giving this horse a release than we typically see. Yes, she is pulling up when his head starts to go down, and that's a safety measure because this horse is so bucky. She lets that head get between his knees, she's really in trouble. But you can see in between that pulling his head back up, she's allowing him to go forward with his head and not trying to shut down this forward, which I think is a good idea. I suspect this rider will stay on. Yeah, see again, she's allowing him to go forward, which calmed him down, even though that was a very dramatic response. I suspect this horse has a habit of catching his mouth after fences, and I suspect he has a habit of sitting and bolting after fences. Very much looked like an experienced rider that knew what was going to happen and was prepared to ride it. I would like to see them go back to poles or something more basic and be able to get a release over the obstacle to help prevent the horse from thinking about the buck, because I would guess even if she had released, he still would have taken off bucking. And perhaps she didn't release in order to control that situation a little better and feel safer, but it's just feeding into the problem more. So again, I would have loved to see her give a release over it and then deal with the bucking. And if that was too dangerous a situation, because he did get very animated over that cross rail, go back down to poles, go back down to nothing in between two empty standards, just so basic that there is nothing to excite him, and show him I always release over, I always release through, etc., until he's not thinking about that grab and not thinking he has to bolt before you've caught him. Another one, push forward and turn, push forward and turn. No, she's lost her leg completely. Had nothing left to push forward with at that point, so I knew she was gonna come off, but that horse absolutely would have stopped again if she'd gone forward. He wasn't really that bucky, he was more humpy, which is a much easier thing to get them out of. I'm not sure what's happening here. This horse looks like his chin is on his chest, so I suspect she has a very strong rein, which is gonna irritate this horse. He's really trying to find a release. So this is kind of what I think, not to bash this rider, it's probably what she's been taught, what she knows. This is kind of what I think is wrong with dressage in general though. There's so much pressure back on that bit, the horse doesn't have anywhere to go. So he was trying to figure out how to get away from that pressure and how to move forward and find a release. And he just couldn't find any release because she's still hanging and she's not rewarding any of his effort or his try. This is gonna create a problem horse eventually, or at least one that gets so shut down and dead in the mouth that he doesn't react at all. Because he has nowhere to go from that pressure. You always need to make sure the horse finds a release. You need to provide an easy path to a release so they know how to find that release and get that release for themselves. Otherwise, you're just creating bottled tension, and the more you fight with a horse, the more they're gonna blow up and explode. It's just not a fair situation for anyone involved. So again, this horse is really trying. You can see him ducking under into that roll cur because he's just trying to find a release, and the rider's not giving him any option. I suspect she wants him to lift his front and sit down in his haunches, but he doesn't understand that, so he's just shrinking and bottling up to try to fix what's happening. This already looks like a decent buck. Not really sure what caused that because they didn't really show us a whole lot. It's hard when these clips don't give you a lot of background and like a couple strides before they buck to really say what's happening. This is one jumping that seems to bolt and buck. So again, you can prevent horses that bolt and buck over fences by providing a release. Obviously, it takes time and a lot of effort to teach them that you're not going to grab them, but horses learn to bolt and buck over fences because you catch them in the mouth. And the more they bolt and buck, the harder we hold over a fence, the worse they become. And it just becomes this really vicious cycle of hanging on their mouth and hanging on their mouth. As they're getting more and more worried about you grabbing them, they buck harder, they bolt harder. The whole problem just spirals into something so much worse than it originally was. Yeah, see, this horse is just bucking every time she grabs its face, which is pretty much every single fence. It's very hard to fix that until you can find a situation where you trust the horse enough to give a release. Again, do it over standards with a pull in between, or even no pull if that even gets the horse super amped. You can walk through the standards, then walk over the pole, trot, canter, etc. Slowly bring it up and just reteach the horse you're not gonna grab its face. So this horse that's rearing, again, I don't have any background about why it went up. Rider's doing a good job grabbing that neck, staying on, but I couldn't tell you what initially started this because they didn't give us any background. I can say that when the horse did go to get forward, she grabbed it again and said, don't go forward. So she is probably unintentionally encouraging this horse to continue rearing by not giving him any outlet to go forward. Always forward, especially on those rearers, because that's the most dangerous thing. She's consistently telling him, don't go forward, don't go anywhere, just go up. And that's sure enough what he did. He went up and tried to spin away and get away from her until she finally came off, therefore getting his release. Here we have another horse. I think this horse is bolting. You can see how she's ready to grab his face, and he also has some sort of martingale or draw reins on. So again, further constricting his ability to go forward. I would guess this turns into a buck. Yep. And not too bad. It's getting a little worse. She did have some semblance of allowing him to go forward, which helped, but there was definitely some moments where she choked up and he got real bucky. Again, forward, people. Forward, forward, forward. And if you do not feel safe going forward on your horse, work on it. Work on relaxing your rein at the walk and just breathing and feeling okay. Do it at the trot, do it at the canter. You gotta be comfortable with forward, or you're always gonna be creating trouble for yourself and your horse. It's just not a good situation. It should be your number one priority to feel confident and comfortable going forward. Everything else will then start to fall into place so much better. All right, this horse looks like it's probably been taught to do that. I would doubt that's a fail. I would suspect they've taught the horse to bow, and he did his job perfectly. The rider looked way too relaxed and confident with that for that to be a bad behavior. This is another bucker, and again, you can see how the rider has this horse's chin all the way to its chest. The horse has no escape, no release from this movement, so I'm sure that's gonna just escalate farther. Actually, I think the rail kind of saved her there, because the horse, again, had nowhere to go and he didn't really want to put the effort into spinning, so he ended up just stopping. So that was probably good timing on her part. I literally can't say it enough. Forward, 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 please. The more forward you have, the better the horse is gonna go, the better everything is gonna be. And I don't mean blasting, bolting, because that's not forward, that's just panic running. But get true through forward, and oh my god, it's like the magic secret pill to horses. Forward, which obviously also means relaxation, straightness, impulsion, etc., which is all why the magic pill becomes so complicated. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, comment down below with anything you have to say, and I will see you guys all tomorrow. Bye.